Hi, guys. Welcome to From Tip to Tail, a podcast dedicated to animal welfare. My name is Sydney.
And I'm Bridget. Today we're talking to Zach Skow from Marleys Mutts, an organization making a positive and lasting impact on communities by rehabilitating souls and creating second chances using the power of the human-animal bond.
For the past 11 or so years, Zach Skow and the Marleys Mutts crew have been such an inspiration to us. We're so very happy to be able to speak to him today. He's really made such an impact on the entire industry and is really making a change out there for a lot of people. So let's go ahead and get started.
So, hi, Zach. How are you today?
I'm doing spectacular. We had a really good week. A lot of good stuff going on, and just trying to keep moving forward in this time of COVID, and try to help our community, try to get some more people involved. It's an interesting time because so many people are kind of stuck in this COVID holding pattern. You know what I mean? Where people are separated from their purpose and not, they're not going to work, they're not doing the things that bring them joy or feeling a part of. So there's actually a really good opportunity to reach volunteers and get people engaged to help the community because they're just home.
Yeah. Have you seen just a huge increase in volunteers?
Yeah, we have. I mean, it hasn't been earth-shattering, but it's been significant for sure. And, some of our friends' organizations, like a friend of mine, Laura LaBelle, who runs the LaBelle Foundation, one of my favorite rescue organizations, they got 3,000 foster applications.
Jeez.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
3,000. That's more than we've ever got in the history of our 11-year organization.
Wow. Well,
That's
so let's
amazing.
go back a little bit. So we always like to know just like a little bit about the rescue and how it got started in general. So how did Marleys Mutts get started?
Oh boy, the famous how did Marleys Mutts get started? Very long-winded question. So what you have to learn about me is I am notoriously long-winded, and I will get into being vulnerable with you about my entire existence. So I will try to keep it. I'll try to just answer the question and keep it short. So Marleys Mutts essentially was created out of my disease. I went into liver failure in 2008 from acute. It's called acute alcoholic hepatitis, stage 4 cirrhosis of the liver. So I was dying of liver failure. Spent 6 weeks in the hospital, and I was released. I got admitted to a transplant program. It basically said you've got less than 90 days to live without a liver transplant. So essentially you're going to die, and we're going to send you home so that you can either pass at home or, try to work to survive 6 months, at which point you'll be eligible for a liver transplant. So my only focus was trying to get a liver transplant and really trying to keep dark thoughts out of my mind so that I wouldn't take my own life. And, I when I got home, I started working with my rescue pack. I had 3 rescue dogs. I'd been working in the field for 4 years up to that point, working with my local humane society. And, my dogs saved my life. They were there for me in so many different ways when I really wanted to take my own life. I was going through opiate withdrawal from getting addicted in the hospital to morphine and Dilaudid. And my dogs were there for me through that experience, which was like a 48-hour just roller coaster of just about as negative of an experience as you can imagine. The pain, the just like emotional destitution. It was really challenging. But having my dogs there rooting me and grounding me really helped. And really it was there was a critical moment in time where I was just ready to give up and just fall into death and kind of just go away. And at that point I was so upset with myself, and I had such a I absolutely hated myself. I couldn't stand anything about me. I had the man in the mirror complex to infinity. I really had a hard time with myself. I was going through all the things that I'd done in life, all the people that I'd hurt, how sick I was and how scared I was of dying. And all those things just made life almost impossible to deal with. But really was able to kind of live through my dogs. when I started walking my dogs after I got out of the hospital, I couldn't get far. I could only get like a block up in the mountains, but I'd do it several times a day. And I started to at least stop focusing on my death or my impending death or what was happening to me. And I started focusing on them, on their happiness, on their ability to be in the moment. And that really helped me stop feeling sorry for myself and get into a cause other than me. My biggest problem was being trapped in my own head. And so that's what we started doing. I got back with the Humane Society and I asked them, hey, I know I'm not doing very well, but would you guys mind letting me foster again? And said, absolutely, and they've been really pivotal throughout my entire experience. So the whole organization wrote letters for me to the transplant hospital to help get me admitted to the transplant hospital. And it was a really, really wonderful kind of family experience. They were really great. So that's what we did, and the minute I started fostering again, it helped me stop thinking about myself. I just put all my effort into taking pictures, into rehabilitating, into writing these biographies. This was pre-social media, so at the time I was putting posters up all over town. And really what happened is people saw this sick guy. I was yellow. I was very, very ill looking. I looked like the sickest sick person you've ever seen. So my community took notice, and I started going to schools, and I started going to high schools, grade schools, other institutions to talk about my dog Marley, who was my savior. He's a Rottweiler pit bull, and everything just kind of started to develop. We weren't an organization. Marley's, it was never an idea. I never wanted to start a dog rescue. I never planned on doing this. It was just one of those things that when I got out of the hospital and started getting into this work, it just took on a mind of its own. And my community really supported me, and people started volunteering, and we started having a ton of adoptions, and it was just on from that point. And back then there was no real mutt rescues, and all the dogs I'd had were mixed breed dogs. So Marley was my pack leader. Mutts were the dogs I loved. So hence Marley's Mutts was born.
Wow. And that was
and that was
11 years ago?
2009.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, and I feel like the rest is history, right? It's just grown so much from there.
Yeah, if you graphed it on a chart, it's kind of been a vertical ascent. We had such a whirlwind ascent back in the kind of 2011 through 2014. We had a little feature from Oprah, and Facebook back then had different algorithms. So everybody was seeing our stuff. We were reaching sometimes almost 5 million people a week. It was out of control. And so it was a very meteoric rise. And yeah, we've just been focused on the human-animal bond, expanding on the human-animal bond and the idea of rescuing animals, helping rescue people. What had happened in my life. My dogs kind of injected themselves into my lives and did for me what I couldn't do for myself, which was focus my mind on something else. I was very egotistical. My sponsor likes to say I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, which means I don't think much of myself, but that's all that I think about. The kind of a piece of crap at the center of the universe complex. But working with my dogs, helped me get away from that and helped me feel a sense of purpose and a sense of hope that I had never felt before. It always felt very worthless. Like if I was scratched off the face of the earth, no one would really take notice, and it wouldn't be much of a loss. Because what was I doing here anyway, other than causing people pain and myself pain? And so to get involved in something where I felt like I was doing good and that I was good at it, I really felt like this was something I was good at, and that I could talk about the dog very vulnerably and emotionally, and I could talk about my own experience very vulnerably and emotionally. And I think that was the key to Marley's Mutts, was so much of it was focused on just little simple write-ups about this or that. And I wanted to focus on how my dogs helped save my life, and how, people with depression and addiction and alcoholism problems can be so positively influenced by dogs, by working with their dogs. And that's what happened for me. So we focused on that idea, and that's what led to Positive Change, which is our inmate canine training program. We're active in 6 state facilities, including a girls' juvenile hall, which is just one of my favorite things in the world. And it's the only live-in rescue dog program where rescue dogs live alongside juvenile offenders in prison. And I just, it's my favorite thing. My dogs help give me a second go round and a second chance, and I think they can do that for other people. There's something so special about the reciprocity and reciprocation of love that dogs give, but there's also something very, very important about how accepting they are of who you are, regardless. I've always I have a hard time accepting me. I have a hard time accepting me. I imagine how hard it is for
Other people.
how hard it makes that for other people. But my dogs have always accepted me exactly for who I am, and I think that has made all the difference.
Aww.
Definitely.
Have you had a
feel like
lot
Marley-
of oh, sorry, Bridge. Have you had a lot of success with that positive change program?
Oh yeah, I mean it's been out of control. We keep expanding. We started with one program at California City 4.5 years ago, and it's quickly grown to, like I said, we have two programs at North Kern State Prison. One of those is a partial veterans development program. We have another at Wasco State Prison, California City Correctional Facility, Tehachapi, which is California Correctional Institute Tehachapi. We're working on a program at Norco, which will launch when this is done. That's in Riverside, and then obviously Juvenile Hall. So we have all these programs, and we've graduated, I think, close to 500 men and girls, and adopted something like 250 dogs throughout that experience, and fundamentally changed the lives of so many ex-convicts, returning citizens. A bunch of our guys who served tons of time. I mean, guys that have been in prison for well over a decade, sometimes 2 decades, have gotten out of prison. Some of these guys spent years in our program, and in our program they're training 13 and a half hours a day with their dogs, for 14 weeks, for 3.5 months.
Oh, wow.
So they're such good trainers, and we have the best trainers in the world that work on this program. Very accomplished. Just I can't say enough about Kim and Leah and Sam and Lisa and Robert and all the people that we've used, John and Ty. They're just so dedicated to the cause, and they're so open-minded and loving, and they're so into this that it's really a people helping people. Fundamentally changed all of our lives, that we get to do this work in prison and really aid the most vulnerable people, the people that need it the most. Because when these guys get out of prison, no one wants to give them an opportunity, and if they don't have an opportunity, they're going back to prison, and going back to prison means creating another victim. So really what we're trying to do is not only provide opportunity for these guys, but lessen the amount of victims that are created, which send people back to prison. 86% of violent offenders will end up back in prison. And that means those 86% have, created more victims. And we want to stay away from that, and we want to really tap into the potential of all of these Americans. These are, people forget that people who are incarcerated have, essentially limitless potential to help this world. And they've also been through something so difficult. Anybody who's been through a long prison term, a bid that's 10 years or more, or even just been to prison at all, has my respect to a certain degree, because it's very challenging. And if they can maintain their humanity and even improve on their humanity while they're locked up, my hat's off to you. That's really impressive.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. My gosh.
And many of those guys are now dog trainers on the outside. I mean, Jason Morey's got to be the most popular dog trainer in all of Orange County. He's got 13,000 followers or something on, Instagram, and Jamal Henderson and a bunch of other guys that you would never in a million years think that they were professional dog trainers. Looking at them, you might think they had been into prison, but they're incredibly intuitive, well-balanced human beings that have great potential in behavior modification. I mean, some of the dogs that Jamal and Jason have rehabilitated, I don't know that anyone could have. I mean, they've really been challenging. And these guys, they have kind of a sixth sense about how to relate and connect with dogs because of the work they did in prison. And it's really helping change the whole trajectory of animal welfare, in a lot of these communities. When we start to allow second chances, like people who are returning from prison, into this economy, this pet industry, it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. We desperately need behavioral, trainers and behavior modifiers, I guess, people who understand canine behavior. And because so many dogs are being adopted from shelters, and a lot of dogs that come from shelters may have certain neuroses or kind of behavioral issues that need to be tweaked or focused on. And our guys are so good at addressing these dogs because they went through so many of them in prison, and they saw a lot of energies, a lot of different types of dogs, and they're capable of training just about anybody. So I'm just very proud of all of it. And I think everybody, I can speak for everybody on our team, we just want to see this in every prison in America. We want to see the medicine that is rescue dogs helping transform the lives of people to make them better, because we've seen it work, and we know what it's capable of, what kind of medicine these dogs possess, and we want to kind of see how far we can take it. How much I think we've only scratched the surface of the human canine bond and what we can achieve together in terms of making our lives better and our pets' lives better, and that's like our primary focus as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And I mean, the idea that you're addressing something that is such a big issue. I mean, when a pet has a medical need, it's very evident what they need and why they may need like funding and things like that to go along with it. But people don't understand, I think, if a pet has a temperament issue, that stands in the way of it finding its forever home and moving on and having a really great life. And it's something that can be overcome. It's not like a bad dog. It's just a dog with a temperament issue is something that can be trained out.
Mm-hmm.
Find a lot of people that can handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so how have things been going in quarantine for you then? We kind of touched on it a little bit, but I mean, so you've gotten a little bit of fosters. You said you've had a really good week. What happened this week?
Yeah, a lot of adoptions. Tons of adoptions. We've had many bully breed adoptions, probably 8. So we only have a handful of dogs at the ranch. So as soon as we get off this podcast, I'm headed to the City of Bakersfield Animal Care Center. I'm going to pick up a St. Bernard who's been there for a week and bring him up to the ranch. We got a bull terrier that's coming up in a few days, and another dog, cattle dog that's coming in that's deaf and blind. And so we're really we're kind of enjoying the hard reset that quarantine will provide. But we've never been more busy because, we're applying for loans to try to be able to pay all of our employees and contractors. Because everything in prison is on hold indefinitely, most likely until June. So all of our programs stopped. Thank God we actually have 15 dogs living in prison through quarantine. So we have 2 full classes that are at North Kern in California City that are taking care of our guys. And that brings me a lot of joy to know that we have dogs. Because I think about our guys, it worries me. I think about what they're going through in prison through this quarantine, and to know that our dogs are there to keep them comfortable and keep them feeling, uplifted is really great. Well, but overall, it's been a really interesting time, and just like you guys touched on, people are more focused on what's online now because they have so much time on their hands. So I think there are more people taking notice, more people wanting to be involved. We've had an increase in adoptions, increase in fosters, and then we've been focusing on just feeding our community. That's been our other project that's been going on. Is we're a very poor county, Kern County, and with oil prices being so low and agriculture being hit so hard, we're struggling. Everyone in our community is having a hard time. So we were getting a lot of messages from people who run out of food, who are saying we're going to have to give up our animals, or they're feeding their dogs cat food or bread. So we've been the last couple of weeks, doing massive deliveries of dog food to basically anybody who needs it. And that's been really successful.
So
well, so you have these dogs in the prisons. Can you tell us a little bit more about the ranch, and are you foster based as well? Where do you keep all your animals basically?
Yeah. So our animals are spread out through 3 different places. One is the ranch. So we have Camp Golden Years is at the ranch. That's about 20 senior and hospice care dogs that are just kept there that hang out at Camp Golden Years and do their thing. And there's a lot of Joel's been having a lot of adoptions, which has been great. A lot of fosters have stepped up to be able to take some of those seniors into their homes instead of having them at the ranch. And we also have a bunch of fosters. We've had up to maybe 120 fosters, and then down to sometimes 30 fosters. Depending on school year times, we have a lot fewer fosters when vacation and summer is going on because people have their kids and it's just a madhouse. So everything kind of fluctuates. And then obviously prison. So those are the 3 locations: the foster, the ranch, And then, when things are healthy, we usually have about 50 dogs in prison.
Wow, that's great. I mean,
Yeah, that is.
yeah, I mean, and to think that it grew out of just your passion for your one dog. That's so
Mhm.
great to think about. I mean, all of these different programs, and I'm sure you're just going to keep growing from here.
Yeah.
So,
The big impetus for prison was, a buddy of mine got out of prison. We gave him a dog named Shadow who had been shot. He had been in prison for a long time, and when he got out, he could have gone either way, and we got him a dog, and he's turned into be just an incredible human being. He's done a lot with his life, and he has his own dog rescue now, and
Aw.
former gang member, 13 years in prison for violent crimes, and really tapped into his altruism and became a dog rescuer himself. His group is called Strength of Shadow Rescue. Shadow is the dog we adopted to him, and yeah, he's even batting around the idea of a prison program. He told me last week, so wish him luck on that.
Aw. That's
yeah,
so
that's
sweet.
amazing.
Yeah, just so many
So,
good things are coming out of it.
I know. Well, so I mean, 11 years. Well, I mean, I guess 11 years Marley's Mutts, but you were working kind of in rescue for years before
Right.
that. So you've got a lot of experience. What do
Mm-hmm.
you think has been the greatest part about rescuing for you?
I think for me, being a person who's struggled with depression and other, I guess, mental afflictions that tell me I'm not good enough, the best part of it has been giving me purpose and hope. It's giving me something to take my focus away from me and away from whatever negative things my mind is trying to tell me, and focus on something other than myself and being of service. And when you get into service over self and you dedicate your life to something other than yourself, it has a way of, I guess, inspiring you to think differently, and it has helped me move into a place of self-love. And I was having a hard time going to sleep last night, and I was repeating to myself, you're good enough, you're worthy, you're good enough, you're worthy, you're loved, which I don't usually do. I'm not usually that superficial when it comes to like mantras, but I can feel it now. I can hear myself say that, and I can go, yeah, that's the reality. All of this other stuff your mind tells you or your subconscious tells you about not being good enough isn't true. Think about what you've done and what you've. But it's also a brutal community. It can be tough. I just got off the phone with Nikki from Road Dogs, and there are people that I can connect with and really feel uplifted by. There's a community of folks here that are just so wonderful and so supportive, and we all have each other's back. And you need that in this work because you're constantly losing lives and you're constantly battling dark, forces. But, at the same time, there's a lot of virtue signaling, and there's a lot of rescues attacking other rescues, and, for one thing or another that to me in many cases seem inconsequential or almost unnecessary, unkind, and even cruel. There's a lot of targeting and a lot of, it's just sad to see, they try to cancel out people. They try to end people. It happened to me, regardless of what, however many 16 years I've been doing this, people will pick up on one thing and they'll want to end you for it. And they'll send you death threats and threats to your family, child, your business, all these things. And I was really taken back by that, getting kind of chewed up and spit out by my own community to a degree. But then I kind of weeded through what the reality was, and the reality is that people are very, very supportive, and we have a lot of love, and that sometimes the 0.01% of evil people, and of kind of maybe not even evil, just people who are hurting, man. People are out there hurting, and when you're hurting, you want to make other people hurt, so you do negative things, and that's kind of all that it is. And a lot of us in rescue, we typically come from a background of injury. We come from a background of addiction or recovery or childhood injury or loss or whatever. So there's a lot of, I think, trauma that people, because why else would a lot of people who put themselves into service work like this, where you're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, no matter what, for something other than yourself. It's a big commitment, and it will wear you down. I mean, it will really, really, really wear you down. So when we do have, support, there's people that I can talk with and relate to, like John Flores from I Pity the Bull, or Ty from Reverse Rescue, or like I said, Nikki or Laura. There's so many. There's a lot of great people now. So I think there's a lot of rescuers who want to help other rescuers and want to be respectful of their mental state, right? Like, this work is so important, and if we keep pushing people out of this work, we're not going to make the progress we need to make within animal welfare. It's been kind of a bit of a sick mental space, and now that we understand that we need to sustain this, we need to keep going for the sake of these animals. There's been a lot more support, a lot of people coming together and saying, hey, I love you and I appreciate you, and let's work together and let's do this instead of being at odds with one another. So that's been really beautiful to see. There's like the Rocky Tanakas of the world. There's a lot of people that just want to help, and I love that. And there are still people that just want to tear others down and just want to post, disgusting videos of terrible things happening to dogs, and that's just not something I can be involved in. I have to, just for the sake of my own mental wellness and the work that we're doing, stay positive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something I think we've seen just so much in the years that we've worked with things. I mean, you'd think that everyone working together for the same goal, everyone would be banding together. But there is a bit of that animosity here and there. But I feel like things have been evolving and people have been coming together. Rescues have been kind of like joining forces, because you can do just so much more when you're partnering rather than fighting each other. I mean, Lord knows you're already fighting so many other things, whether it comes to like funding, space, like the different ailments that you're encountering with an animal. I mean, there's no time to fight with each other.
And overall, it's all the same mission. Everyone's just working for the bettering of animal lives and animal welfare. So I think once everyone kind of gets on that same wavelength, the little differences or the little squabbles, they seem, I guess, not as
inconsequential. They really are.
Definitely.
I mean, I think it's difficult because we have a tendency to think, especially if an organization is in your area, that you're competing for a limited resource, which is donors, right? You're competing for a limited resource of donors, a limited resource of adopters, a limited resource of fosters. So I know for people in our community, it felt like, for other organizations, it felt like we were getting so big that maybe there wasn't room for them. And I think what we've really discovered is that there's room for all of us. I mean, the number of rescues, when I first started, I think there was only like a couple dozen registered nonprofits in our area that dealt with animals. And I mean LA and Kern County. There were not very many. Now there's something like 600. There's a ton. And there's room for everybody. There's room, and we all deserve to be here. We're all in a field of work where we're trying to give back to the animals that have given so much to us. And there's room for all of us to do that. This doesn't have to be a competition. You don't have to tear down others to build yourself up. Just gotta, and I keep focusing on attracting new talent. The way that we're gonna. I was wondering when we'd have our first dog bark. I secluded my dog so that I wouldn't have barks. I usually always have it. You gotta have, if it's a rescue podcast, you gotta have dog feedback.
Absolutely,
Benjamin. He's just protecting the house.
But yeah, I mean, I just think if we're gonna make the United States no kill, if we're gonna keep doing these wonderful things and really make a difference in the work that we're trying to make a difference in, we have to work together. We have to support one another. We certainly have to not tear one another down. And I think we're definitely headed in the right direction. And there's a lot of great people that have joined this effort. A lot of kind of quote unquote normal people who have gotten involved in this work, and it's great because we need the best and the brightest if we're going to be able to help the animals that have helped us. So
totally.
I hope we continue on the right track.
It sounds like you've had so many people that have been with your organization too, that have just gone off and been so inspired that they're starting their own rescue too. And I love that you're like, people are taking that away and being like, I can do this. Like, we can keep spreading this.
Yeah, exactly. Quite a few people actually,
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you obviously kind of started off a little bit smaller, but granted with a little bit of experience in your back pocket. But I mean, we work with so many small and maybe mid-level rescues, and they're always looking for ways to grow. And I was wondering if you could maybe speak to what you think the keys to growth in rescue have been for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started in my dad's garage. I lived in my dad's workshop, and that's where Marley's Mutts started. I was in liver failure. Didn't have two nickels to rub together. I owed $900,000 to Bakersfield Memorial Hospital. We had no money. I was deathly ill. It was about as low and as small as you can start. Was with nothing. And the way I got people to pay attention to me was speaking on my experience. I was talking about what the dogs have done with me and really opening myself up vulnerably about what I was experiencing. The world was new to me when I got sober. I drank every day, all day for many years. I was a 24-hour-a-day drinker and user. And so when I got sober, I had to relearn how to do everything. And I was scared to death. I hadn't driven sober in a decade. So I just shared about it. I talked about it. And when people out there relate to you and they start to learn you and know you and applaud you for opening up, and then it causes them to open up, and then they feel an emotional exchange. If you're sharing something from within you, then they want to share something back, and we develop these connections through social media. Even though they're electronic connections, they're beautiful, and people start to open up about childhood sexual trauma or addiction or alcoholism or any of the things that I've been through. People start to relate to, and then you build these really profound bonds that are even more than animals or rescue. But we all have in common that we cherish that we cherish the human canine bond and the medicine within that. So that's kind of the common denominator is our love for dogs, but then it becomes bigger and greater than that. It becomes this community, and there becomes this open exchange of vulnerability, and that's what did it for me, was just trying to be a little bit different in how I wrote biographies, how I took pictures, and how I shared my own journey about what these dogs do for me. And I think that was the key. So for smaller organizations, what I would say is to try to maybe find something unique about your the niche that you're trying to focus on. So find something unique that makes you different, and then just speak vulnerably from the heart. Really talk about what it means to be a rescuer to you. Talk about what these dogs, the emotional effect these dogs have on you. Because if you're just posting, hey, this is Fluffy, she's 3 years old, isn't she pretty, she needs a home, that doesn't mean much. But it's all about telling stories. I think this is the best advice I would give to smaller organizations is tell stories. Most of the public will never get to go into a full animal shelter of barking dogs who are all looking down the barrel of potential death and get to save a life. And us as rescuers with social media accounts, we get to go into the shelter and bring our community along with us, show them, and save lives together. They may not physically be with us, but that's what people want to see, and they want to see this positivity. They want to see people doing good things together and helping save lives, and that's what's so beautiful. These stories of resurrection and these second chances, and I think dogs really show us what we're capable of in terms of getting through difficult physical injuries or difficult emotional situations. Because dogs feel PTSD too, and we get to watch these tremendous triumphs. I'm looking at a picture of Hooch right now, who's one of our dogs. He had his tongue cut out, he has ears cut off, and we thought, oh God, this dog's gonna die for sure. We don't know what to do with him. Can we feed him through a tube the rest of his life? And he figured it out. He went on to win the American Humane Hero Dog Awards, and it's just this beautiful story of resurrection despite terrible things that were done to him. So getting to tell those stories and share those stories is just beautiful, beautiful stuff.
I love that.
It's so true. I think so many people have this goal of maybe a sterile perfection too. But I think when you get down into that nitty gritty vulnerability, that's when amazing connections happen and people really start to feel like you're a human being, and they can really relate to you.
It's personal.
Definitely. Well, so you have a family, yes?
I do.
A human family, I guess I should say.
Yeah, right. Human one.
It's a large canine and feline